Boothiel scraped over warped saloon boards, but the sound died quick when the door creaked open. She stood there, framed by the last red streaks of sundown. Dust clung to her torn dress. Her lips were split, and her arms wrapped tight around a child whose eyes were half-lidded with hunger. Her voice was a rasp, thin as paper but sharp enough to slice the silence. "Please, just let me stay. I don't need much. Just feed my child." Cards stilled in midair. Whiskey glasses hovered halfway to mouths. The piano man's hands fell still, leaving one final, lonely note trembling in the air. The child whimpered, a faint, dry sound that seemed to echo louder than gunfire in that sudden hush. A chair scraped. The bartender, a heavy man with sleeves rolled, leaned across the counter. His voice was flat, edged with irritation. "We don't run a charity here. Take your trouble elsewhere." The woman swayed, knees nearly buckling. She tightened her grip on the boy, holding him as if the walls themselves meant to rip him away. The boy's thin hand clutched her collar, eyes glazed, lips moving like he whispered prayers too faint for anyone to hear. Laughter cracked the stillness. A cowboy, whiskey dripping from his beard, shoved away from his table. He swaggered toward her, boots thudding heavy. "Well, now," he drawled, eyeing her like a vulture eyes carrion. "Ain't that something? A little desert flower blowing off the wind, begging scraps." He reached out, fingers rough, aiming for the child's thin arm. She jerked back, fire flashing in eyes gone hollow from hunger. "Don't touch him." Her voice carried a weight no one expected. Raw, protective, dangerous in its own way. The cowboy blinked, then chuckled low, "Feisty little coyote, huh? Maybe you'd be worth more than the boy." Her nails dug into the child's shirt, as if anchoring him to life itself. "You'll have to kill me first." Chairs screeched as a few men leaned forward, eager for a spectacle. Boots shuffled, coins clinked, and the room swelled with that restless energy that always comes before blood. And then a glass clicked against wood. From a far corner, where the lantern light barely touched, a woman set down her empty whiskey glass. She had been there the whole time, silent as stone, eyes steady on the scene unfolding. Her hair, streaked with silver, framed a face cut deep by time and weather. She didn't move fast. She rose slow, deliberate, her shadow stretching across the floorboards. The drunk cowboy froze mid-step, his smirk faltering as those eyes locked on him, eyes that did not blink, eyes that had seen more than any man in that room dared to imagine. The saloon seemed to shrink. Even the smoke from the lamps held still. Her boots carried her forward one step at a time. No rush, no need. Every man in that room felt the weight of her presence, the kind that pressed down heavier than any 6-gun. When she stopped, she didn't look at the desperate woman, didn't glance at the child. Her gaze pinned only the cowboy, cutting him down where he stood. Her voice, when it came, was low, rough as gravel, but it carried clear to every ear. "Leave the girl be." The cowboy swallowed. His hand twitched at his side, hovering over the holster like instinct begged him to draw. But some deeper instinct warned him better. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The desert wind outside moaned against the shutters, as though the land itself leaned in to hear. The mother clutched her child tighter, eyes wide, staring at the figure who had spoken for her. She didn't know the name, the story, or the shadow that walked out of that corner. But the saloon did. Every man there felt in his gut the stirring of an old tale, a legend whispered along campfires and dusty trails. And so the sun bled its last light across the horizon, and silence hung like a noose, waiting for the next sound to break it. The door banged shut against the wind, rattling the frame of the lonely ranch house. Shadows stretched long across the bare floorboards, broken only by the flicker of lamplight. The child coughed, sharp and dry, while the mother bent low over him, spooning broth from a battered tin bowl. His lips parted, trembling, and the broth slid weakly past them. From the corner, the widow watched. Arms folded, eyes narrowed. She leaned against the hearth where firewood spat and cracked. Her silence pressed heavier than the storm clawing outside. The mother's hands shook as she set the spoon down. "He'll get stronger," she whispered, not to anyone but to herself, as if saying aloud might force it true. The widow turned away, tossing another log into flames. Sparks burst upward, lighting the old photographs on the mantel. Faces long gone, watching with dust-clouded eyes. "You can stay," the widow said finally, her voice flat, without warmth. "But there's no kindness in it. You'll work. You'll earn your keep." The mother straightened, clutching the boy's frail shoulder. "I'll do anything. So, clean, mend fences, feed stock. Whatever it takes." The widow's gaze lingered on her, hard as stone. Then, with a curt nod, she turned back to the fire. Wind howled through the cracks. Somewhere out beyond the walls, coyotes yipped and answered each other in the dark. The mother pulled the boy close, rocking him gently. He drifted into a thin sleep, breath rattling soft against her chest. She stared at the ceiling beams as though they might cave in on her, but the widow said nothing more. Morning broke sharp and pale. Frost rimmed the troughs outside. The widow's boots crunched over the frozen dirt as she led the stranger into the yard. A shovel thrust into the woman's hands, heavy, splintered with age. "Ground's hard," the widow said, "but it won't dig itself." The young mother bit down, knuckles white on the handle. She drove the blade into earth that fought back like iron, breath pluming in the cold. Hour after hour, the widow watched her work, sweat dripping, arms trembling, shoulders bent near breaking. Still, the stranger never slowed. Not once. When noon came, the boy sat wrapped in a blanket by the fence, silent eyes following every movement. His cheeks still hollow, but color flickered faintly where death's shadow had clung. By dusk, the trench lay cut and raw in the earth. The mother staggered back, arms limp, hair plastered her face. She swayed, but she did not fall. The widow's mouth pressed tight, hiding what almost looked like respect. "You'll last here," she muttered. The mother turned, eyes shining with tired fire. "I'll last anywhere if it means my child breathes." Night settled thick. The wind carried whispers along the ridges. Out past the barn, horse tracks marked the sand. Fresh, too fresh. The widow crouched by them, fingers brushing the print, eyes narrowing toward the horizon where riders moved like shadows against the dying light. She returned without a word, bolting the door, setting her rifle by the frame. The mother saw it. She saw the way the widow's hand lingered on the worn stock, saw the flicker in her eyes that spoke of battles older than the boy she rocked to sleep. Later, when the house had gone quiet, lamplight painted her scars in sharp relief. Across her back, raw lines jagged and cruel, marks no labor could make. The widow stood in the doorway of the room, unseen but watching. The mother traced those scars with her own trembling fingers, as though counting them, as though remembering. She whispered to herself in a language of pain only the broken could understand. The boy stirred, and she quickly pulled her dress over her shoulders, smoothing it down, hiding the map of suffering. But the widow had already seen. The fire hissed in the hearth. Outside, coyotes called again, long and lonely, echoing through the dark. The widow's voice finally came, low, more to herself than anyone. "You didn't just wander here hungry. Someone carved those scars into you." The mother froze, lips tight, arms around her child. Silence stretched, sharp and heavy. She did not answer. "Not yet." The widow turned back into the shadows, eyes hard, jaw set. "Then they'll come looking." And the lamp guttered in the cold draft, throwing the room into half dark, where fear and truth both. The town's main street trembled under the thunder of hooves. Dust rose in choking clouds as the outlaw gang rode in, black silhouettes against the pale noon sun. Their leader sat tall, eyes cold as river stones, his coat snapping in the wind. Doors slammed. Curtains fluttered shut. Mothers yanked children off the porches. No one dared stand in their way. The saloon doors groaned as the leader pushed through. Boots echoed slow, deliberate, as he tossed his hat on the counter. His men fanned out like wolves circling prey. He spoke low, steady, each word cutting clean. "She's here." A woman ran. "Took what was ours." "She's hiding under some roof." The bartender's eyes darted. His rag froze mid-wipe. One of the men leaned close, pressing steel against his ribs. He swallowed hard, whispering quick. The leader's mouth curved, not a smile, something sharper. He slapped the counter, turned, and strode back into the street. "To the Bitter Creek Ranch," he ordered. "Tonight." At the ranch, the widow's knife scraped slow against the whetstone. Steel sang faint in the quiet. She held the blade up to the lamplight, edge glinting. Her face did not move, but her eyes told the truth. Old fires stirring where ashes had long slept. The mother folded laundry by the hearth, hands trembling though she tried to hide it. The boy lay curled on a rug, his thin chest rising steady, stronger than before. The widow set the knife down, lifted a rifle from its place against the wall. Dust puffed as she dragged her palm along the barrel, wiping away years of silence. "You know how to hold one?" she asked, voice rough. The mother froze, cloth clutched tight. "No." The widow pushed the rifle toward her. "Then learn." The mother's fingers shook as she took it, awkward and heavy her hands. She tried to lift it, arms quivering. The widow stepped close, strong hands guiding hers, showing her where to grip, where to rest her cheek. "Breathe steady, pull slow, never jerk." The mother swallowed, staring down the sight, heart hammering like it might crack her ribs. The boy stirred at the sound of the click. She lowered it fast, clutching him, whispering, "I can't." The widow's voice cut sharp. "You can." A beat of silence. Only the wind at the shutters, coyotes howling faint on the ridges. The mother stared at her, eyes wet, fire catching them despite the fear. She nodded once. The widow turned away, checking the window, peering into the dark, out past the fence line. Faint flickers of torchlight licked at the horizon. "They're coming." By midnight, the gang had gathered outside. Horses stamped, snorted, restless in the dust. Torches swayed in the wind, painting long, crooked shadows across the land. From inside the ranch house, the mother peeked through a crack in the shutters. Her breath caught sharp at the sight, dozens of them, circling like buzzards. The widow stood tall in the doorway, rifle slung, jaw set like granite, her silhouette cut against the lamplight, steady as the walls themselves. The boy whimpered, clutching his blanket. The mother pulled him close, whispering, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." But her hands betrayed her, trembling, knuckles white against his shoulder. Hose shuffled closer. The outlaw leader raised his torch, fire dancing in his eyes. His voice carried across the dark, smooth and cold. "You think walls will keep her from us? She belongs to us. She's ours. Send her out, now, and maybe we'll let you keep your skin." The widow stepped into the threshold, rifle gleaming in the firelight. Her voice was iron. "She's mine now." The men growled, shifted, weapons glinting under the stars. The leader laughed, sharp and cruel, the sound slicing through the night. "You ain't got the strength to fight us, old woman." The widow's eyes narrowed, hard as stone. Her thumb cocked the rifle with a clean, clicking snap. "Try me." The mother pulled the boy back into the shadows, heart pounding so loud she swore the men outside could hear. She glanced once more through the shutters, saw the torches sway, the horse's restless breath steaming in the cold, and then the leader dropped his torch into the dirt, embers spitting up into the wind. His hand lifted, fingers curling into a silent command. The gang fanned out, shadows slipping into the tall grass, circling. Inside, the widow lowered her voice, just loud enough for the mother to hear. "Stay behind me." The air pressed heavy. The fire in the hearth hissed low. Somewhere outside, an owl screeched once, then silence fell. And in that silence, the first shot cracked. Gunfire tore through the night. The ranch house shuddered under the storm of bullets, glass shattering, splinters flying. The boy screamed, muffled against his mother's chest as she dragged her behind the overturned table. The widow stood in the doorway, rifle steady, eyes calm as a churchyard stone. Each shot she fired rang out clean, cutting through the chaos. Men fell in the dirt, their torches rolling into the dust. Smoke thickened. Horses reared, screaming into the dark. The gang pressed harder, circling, shadows slipping through firelight. The mother clutched a shotgun, trembling, heart pounding like a drum. The widow's voice snapped through the roar. "Breathe. Aim." Don't flinch." The mother raised a barrel. A figure broke from the dark, teeth bared, pistol flashing. She shut her eyes, squeezed the trigger, blast shaking her arms numb. When she opened them, the outlaw lay twisted in the dust. The widow glanced back once, just once, and gave the faintest nod. The fight raged on. Flames leapt up the barn walls, crackling, sending sparks across the sky. Men shouted, their voices raw with hate. Bullets whined past the window frames. The house shook, but the widow did not. Her rifle cracked again and again, each shot carving the night, until the chamber clicked empty. She tossed it aside, drew a revolver from her hip with smoothness that spoke of years long past. The outlaw leader rode forward, torchlight catching his cold eyes. He dismounted slow, calm, boots sinking into the dust. Around him, the surviving gang circled tighter, firelight dancing on their steel. The widow stepped out into the yard, revolver in hand, the blood-red dawn beginning to climb behind her. The leader's voice cut sharp. "I know you now." His lips curled into a cruel smile. "Widow of Bitter Creek, thought you were dead." The murmurs of his men rippled like wind through grass. The name hung heavy, weighted with fear. The widow said nothing. Her eyes locked on him, steady, unshaken. He spread his arms wide, laughing. "So it's true. A ghost walks still. But even ghosts can bleed." The standoff stretched. Dust swirled between them, glowing in the firelight. The mother watched in the shadows, clutching the boy, breath caught in her throat. The leader's hand dropped to his holster. Fingers twitched. The widow moved first. Her revolver flashed, smoke curling like a serpent. His gun clattered to the dirt, his body lurching back. The gang erupted, shouts, gunfire wild in the air. The widow advanced, shot after shot, each one finding its mark. Men scattered, stumbling, some fleeing, others falling. Fire painted the sky, the blood-red dawn rising higher with every heartbeat. One outlaw lunged from the side, blade raised. The mother, shaking, raised her shotgun. Her shot tore him back into the dirt before he touched the widow. For a breathless second, silence returned. Smoke drifted. Flames crackled. The sky burned crimson. The leader staggered, clutching his side, blood soaking through his coat. His eyes still burned hate as he lifted a second pistol from his belt, arm trembling but steady enough. The widow squared to him, revolver raised. The world shrank to two figures in the dust. The rest nothing but smoke and silence. His lips curled, teeth red. "You can't kill the past." Her eyes narrowed. "Watch me." Two shots cracked as one. The leader spun, staggered, and dropped face first into the dirt, his torch smothered under his weight, fire hissing out. The widow stood tall, revolver still smoking, dawn's light burning behind her like a crown. The last of the gang fled into the desert, hopes fading into nothing. Silence settled, heavy and final. The mother stumbled out. The boy clutched tight to her chest. Her eyes wide, wet with disbelief, she whispered, You saved us." The widow slid the revolver back into its holster, shoulders heavy, breath slow. She looked at the boy, alive, unbroken, his small hand reaching out toward her. For the first time in years, her hand trembled as she took it. The red sun climbed higher, burning away smoke, painting the world in fire and light. Later, the townsfolk would whisper of what happened at Bitter Creek, of how the widow rose again, not for herself, but for a desperate mother and her starving child. And long after the guns had gone silent, the story would travel, spoken in saloons by campfires, down lonely trails, like all legends do,